the Discovery Channel.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another showing of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host today, Ashley Perrien, and my co-host, Russell Glasser.
Hello.
And special guest, Tim Suto. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, we are live today. It's April 17th, and we're being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets, which is on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. Those start at 11:30 and go until about 2 o'clock. Those are open to any atheist-friendly people. You do not have to be a member of the group or anything like that to come down and enjoy the good times. But we do ask that it only be atheist and atheist-friendly people, please. Other regular meetings that we have, every Sunday we do Crescent City Beignets, save the third Sunday of the month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. Today was the third Sunday of April, so we had a lecture series. We had Extinction, I believe his name was, who came in from the People for the American Way to talk about some church-state separation issues. It was an excellent lecture, talking about what their group actually does, how they operate, the things that are on their radar at this time. The big one for them is a so-called nuclear option that's being done for the judicial confirmations. But it was a very interesting lecture.
I didn't realize that was specifically a church-state issue.
Well, not church-state specifically, but that's one of the big issues that they are dealing with right now. So he tried to keep it somewhat related to us specifically, what we would be interested in, but also just what the group does and what's big for them. So, which may not always intersect perfectly. That's every third Sunday of the month at the Austin History Center. Those start at 12:30. Next month, just to keep up with everybody here, if you're ACA members, do not forget, May 1st we have elections for the new board members. If you're at all able to make that, please do so. There should be something in the mail coming out soon, if you haven't already gotten it, talking about some constitutional changes that we're going to be voting on, and obviously new members of the board. So something to put on your calendar, May 1st. All right, some other regular things that we do. Again, Sunday meetings, the lecture series. Every Monday night we have Godless Gamers at this man's house. If you have any questions or anything about that, you can go to our website, atheist-community.org, and there's a calendar link. You can get all the information for all of our meetings there. Like the Sunday, the Gamers, and also Thursday night Atheist Happy Hour and Antonio's Tex-Mex on the southbound feeder of I-35 just south of 183. That starts at 7:30 on Thursdays. And again, just like the Sunday meeting, don't need to be a member or anything, just show up, have a couple drinks, and have some fun. Also, let me see what else we have. That's it for regular announcements. One last thing, we have been going out to dinner after the show, the cast and crew and friends and family and so on, and we're continuing that today. We're going to be going to Chili's on, it's the southeast corner of I-35 and 183. The show ends at 6 o'clock. We'll be there probably around 6:40 or 6:45. Again, any atheist-friendly people, more than welcome to come down there and join us in some burgers. So again, that's today. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. We're live today. It's April 17th. We're going to be taking callers in a little while, but first we're going to go to, I believe, Tim Suto, and you have something interesting for us.
Yes, I have become very passionate in my study recently in the topic of evolution. I've read some books by people like Richard Dawkins, fun stuff. He's a great author, and just studying on the internet, textbook type of things, and really studying this. I'm enjoying it, and I'd love to take some more classes on it and really get into this more. But I have been studying this, and I thought I'd share some things because this is a big issue. And let me just first lead off with that Martin Wagner, who was a former host of the show, sent an email on our list this past week about House Bill 220, which is going to go into committee on Tuesday. And what this bill will do is basically allow a loophole which will allow popular opinion to be used instead of facts in textbooks. So if you have a stance on this issue, it might be an interest to discuss this with your representative before Tuesday, because then it'll be over. And some of the ideas that he listed in there that were being promoted by different groups seem sort of ludicrous to me. One was that the slavery wasn't so bad. That was one of the things that
A little bit of revisionist history.
little revisionist history there. That the Holocaust didn't really happen. A lot of confusing things, and
But these are not ideas that are actually being promoted as being put in the textbook.
no, but these are things that could get in under this loophole.
Under this new rule.
There are people out there who do want to put these
there's
ideas in there.
definitely books
Oh, yeah.
that have been promoting the slavery not being so bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as things stand, these books would have no chance as it is, but this bill would allow those things to come up to vote. Wouldn't necessarily mean they would go into policy, but it would just be another step closer to some ludicrous ideas in the classroom, like that you can transmit AIDS by holding hands.
Yes.
So,
And what was
I think Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist was asked that once, and he, being a doctor who should know better,
yeah.
said, well, I guess so.
yeah,
So, and what was the number on that again? I'm sorry.
House Bill 220,
220.
and it goes into committee on Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank Martin for bringing that to our attention.
Yes.
So, as I was thinking this, I'm like, how do people get these ideas, that these things, like the thing about the AIDS? And I thought for a second, and then I realized, I was very lucky. I grew up in a household where it was made sure that I would get a good education inside and outside the classroom. And I had a father who was a journalist who instilled in me the importance of high-quality journalism and everything that I did, even to the point where if I wrote a letter home on a vacation, he would write blue pen ink and send it back to me. So I developed very high standards in journalism and skepticism and qualities for evidence. So I was lucky because of the way I was raised. These things didn't become an issue for me. But say if you were in Mel Gibson's household where his father didn't believe that the Holocaust happened, he would not have had the same benefit. So people, depending on where they grew up and what situation they were, didn't always get the benefit. And since evolution is one of the things that's going to come into issue for this bill, I'm going to talk about some of the misconceptions that are out there concerning what is there's some fallacious cases and ideas that supposedly debunk evolution, but they really aren't true. And I wanted to go over some of these now, and we can get into more on the phone calls, but I want to go into some of the more fallacious ones that unfortunately too many people support. And the first big one is that evolution is only a theory. Now, theory in science is a big word. It has, with any area of expertise or specialty, words have different meanings. In a layman's sense, theory is often used to just suggest an idea. I have a theory that this happened. It's really conjecture. But in science, theory is a big idea. It originates from math and geometry. You originally had theorems, which were basically like scientific laws, that these were facts that were accepted. These were not, no one had going from point A to point B in a straight line is the quickest path. That would be a theorem. Now a theory is a collection of theorems. So you have the theory of geometry, and likewise you have the theory of evolution. Now that gets into something called the scientific theory. A lot of people will say that, oh, scientists disagree on this and scientists disagree on that, and they'll cherry pick different points that are disagreed about on very specific issues of the theory. But that doesn't disavow the theory. And I'll give the example of how this relates to NASCAR, because I know a lot of people might be watching that instead of this today. And although it's sort of a weird sport to me, I don't enjoy watching cars. I don't enjoy driving, and I sort of find it odd that minorities are conspicuous by their absence in NASCAR. However, a very interesting thing about NASCAR is that while it's a very popular thing now and getting more popular, sort of hard to ignore, it is also a televised science experiment and a great example of how the scientific method works. Basically, in NASCAR, each week you have 43 teams of scientists, car scientists, who get together and they have hypotheses about what will make the race car go around the track the fastest in over a certain amount of laps. So they have the hypothesis, and then they have a test, which is the race. Sometimes they keep the same idea throughout the race and they win. Sometimes they keep the same idea throughout the race and lose. Sometimes they alter that hypothesis in order to adjust to situations that occur during the race, such as an engine failure, weather, crashes, and that is, and then at the end someone wins. And so it's an example of how the scientific method works. You have based on facts, you have a hypothesis, and you test the hypothesis, and then you have conclusions that are based on that. And fans of NASCAR and just of any sport will notice that there's an evolution to these things. Successful hypotheses get adopted over time. And one example is that about 10 years ago there was a race team of car scientists that put a lot of effort into and technology into making sure that their pit stops were really fast. Everyone was doing pit stops at like 18 to 20 seconds, and this group, the DuPont team, was doing pit stops in about 14 seconds. And as a result, they had a very high success rate. And what happened was, because they won so many races, teams had to either adopt their focus on pit stops or not be successful, and they did. So that changed the sport and it evolved. Now, as these hypotheses change and as these car scientists, these teams in NASCAR, disagree on elements of how things happen, they never disagree on the fact that a car exists. The car would be the great theory. And they never disagree that cars exist and putting all these pieces together equal a car. But they do disagree on how they should balance their tires and what fuel to use, and that's sort of like how the differences between the evolutionary theorists work. They have differences on exactly what animals took what path to get through. There was a long time where there was conjecture that the whales came strictly from what we consider now sort of dog-like creatures, but in actuality they are closer to hippopotamus.
Really?
Yeah. So there's little things that that are disagreed about in evolution, but the whole theory does not get contradicted. And just as you still have a car, even if you disagree about what type of transmission you use, you still have a car. It's not refutable. So that brings us next to the fossil record. The fossil record is often questioned because we don't have an unlimited number of fossils. The fossilization process takes a long time, and you can only have so many fossils, otherwise the world would be completely cluttered with them. And those challenging evolution will say, well, you have a fossil here and here and here, but you don't want to have one here. And no matter what happens, you're always going to have a gap between two fossils. But there are a great number of fossils, and sort of that argument about you don't have enough of them is sort of like saying you take pictures of a clock at various points in time during a day and saying you don't have a picture between 7:35 and 14 seconds and 7:35 and 18 seconds. What happened to those 4 seconds? That's not proof that the clock is telling time.
That's Dennis Loubet's analogy, by the way,
is that,
on the nonprofits. Yeah.
Okay. I've heard it from multiple sources, and I'll, yes, give Dennis credit.
Okay.
Tell him that his meme is getting out there.
Good for him.
But more importantly, we don't even need totally the fossil record to prove and support evolution. It definitely helps. It's useful. We don't want to let it go. But what's more important is genetic coding. All biological matter has what's called DNA, which evolved from RNA and proteins. And the DNA of humans or any other animal has also the mapping of the DNA from other creatures that they share links with, and also they share different pieces that are no longer used anymore that are still in use in other animals. And we can tell by comparing and contrasting the DNA, that information, sort of like a book of information on what makes up that animal, say chimpanzees and humans, to find out what the link is between them. So eventually, with enough advancement in the ability to transcribe DNA quickly and at low cost, we will be able to deduce from chimpanzee and human DNA the concestor, as Richard Dawkins coined the term, of both of us, and recreate what that animal was, which would be a wonderful thing, because in thinking with evolution, we're all part of the same family of all these species that we are together, and it would be great to, make contact with an animal that, just happened to die out before us, but is actually an ancestor, sort of like you'd love to talk with your great-great-great-grandparents and find out what was life like during the early 1800s. Likewise, you could find out not necessarily what life was like back then, but see what that person or that animal is like, and it would help us learn more about ourselves. But we have other problems in the world right now that are of higher priority, most particularly in medicine, that we tend to focus on more, which I'll get into later. But the fossil record is sort of comes hollow, just like the bones themselves when they fossilize. Next we have, where is the macroevolution? Where are the new species? Most people contrary to evolution will say, well, I see how dogs are bred and how flowers are bred, and there's microevolution there. There's small changes, but all those dogs can still mate with each other. You can still, as uncomfortable as it may sound, take a little Shih Tzu and mate it with a Great Dane. And they haven't really separated the species. Well, there are examples of species becoming where we have tracked the separation of species. One example, and probably the most famous, is in the new Skeptical Inquirer. Actually, this came out about 3 weeks ago, but they have a great discussion about evolution evidence, and they talk about the peppered moth and some of the confusion about the research on it. But the peppered moth basically was a mostly white moth, but with some black speckles, that existed in Britain around and for a long time, and up until the late 1700s. It existed that way until the Industrial Revolution started. And when this happened, all the coal burning and the fossil fuels, all the soot, discolored the buildings and many of the trees in the urban areas. Well, peppered moths with darker appearance blended better into the background, the facade that they were on, and therefore had a better rate of survival against predators. And this happened to the point where the peppered moth sort of became a new species. And
No, it didn't.
Please
Are
correct
they
me.
still listening?
No, they're still the same species. The point of the peppered moth, I think, is really just to illustrate how a population drifts over time.
Okay, I apologize.
I mean, it's a recent example of the power and speed of the change in appearance.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure
That's
it's not a new species.
naturally without
But I mean, one good illustration of changing species. Do you have anything on there on ring species?
I do have
Okay.
ring species. There's most of the examples are from islands. One is the herring gull, which is in Britain, is a bird that exists in many forms throughout sort of the Arctic Circle as you go around the world, and it changes slightly from as it goes to Iceland and then Greenland, which are slightly different environments, and then across Canada and eventually to Siberia. And in Siberia, the variation is called the black-beaked gull. The black-beaked gull is a completely separate species from the herring gull. Okay. They can't mate together, and successfully they won't do that. It's impossible for them to do so. That there's been enough variation, and throughout many islands you have instances of these ring species sort of in the archipelagos, where from island hopping and going into slightly new environments, the animals have changed and formed new species.
So in other words, each nearby couple of species are close enough to each other that they can still mate with each other. But once you get all the way around the island and you get back to the beginning, there's two next to each other that have changed so much that they're no longer the same species.
Yes.
Interesting.
And another example of slightly different one is the London mosquito. And this is here about 100 years ago when the London subways were being built. Mosquitoes called Silex pipiens settled into the tunnels. Now, after 100 years and hundreds of generations, mosquitoes have genetically mutated to such a degree that they can be considered as separate species. These new mosquitoes, Silex molestus, now feed on the inhabitants of the tunnels, including rats, mice, and workers, in comparison to their cousin above ground that feed primarily on birds. So the mosquitoes, their diet changed, and they were in a new environment, and it's a completely new species now. So we have examples. We've been able to record that the species actually do change, and you do have examples of microevolution.
But usually the argument I hear with something like that, and I don't know if you were going to get into this, tell me if it was, of they're still mosquitoes. Until they produce a mouse, then it's and that's usually how it's promoted. Now, I don't know if you're getting into that next, or
no, I was going to leave it at that. If callers want to call in and bring that up, I didn't want to use.
Okay.
Creationists have a thing, I mean, where since it's been proven that species can change, they say, okay, species can change, but a species is not a kind. Because in the Bible it says they all reproduce according to their kind. Yeah. No scientific definition of kind has ever been produced. I think the definition of kind is whatever is at the limit of what we haven't observed
yet.
So
the biggest thing with the intelligent design and some of the creationists and some of the religious based arguments is that, like we discussed before, how the word theory has different meanings and different names and different meanings in different circles. The religious folks seem to have a difficult time defining their words and terms. They call intelligent design, but I've not seen a concise definition of what intelligent or design is, and that doesn't work too well. You never will. Yeah. So until they come up with that, you're going to have to show me something.
Well, that's the whole point of intelligent design. They rely on being vague.
Yeah.
If they weren't vague, they'd be regular creationists who have been failing for years and years, because every time they define their terms specifically, that definition leaves them wide open for a disproof.
Yeah. So the only way they can win is by being so vague that they can't be proven wrong.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that brings us to the last major thing that is pretty funky. Is they say that the law of the evolution violates the second law of thermodynamics. Now, this is, I don't know exactly where this came from. I haven't found the exact source on this, but it's repeated thousands of times throughout the internet, and anytime you look at intelligent design, this comes up. And the second law of thermodynamics says that heat can never pass spontaneously from a colder to a hotter body. And as a result, this fact, natural processes that involve energy transfer must have one direction. And therefore, as we get on, this predicts that entropy of an isolated system, mind you, always increases with time. Now, this doesn't really apply to evolution because evolution is an open system. It is not a closed system. And it really doesn't, the second law is mostly about that part of the heat transferring from colder to hotter bodies and not about passing on of genes. It's a real stretch of an argument. But if they do want to really pay attention to thermodynamics, the first law of thermodynamics states that energy in the universe cannot be created or destroyed. So therefore, if they're going to play around with thermodynamics, God couldn't create energy or destroy it.
Yeah, couldn't create or destroy matter or energy.
Yeah, which goes back to something that I think gets lost is that evolution doesn't explain how the universe came to be or how the first life came to be. It explains how information from life form to life form passes over time and how natural selection and sexual selection cause that information to mutations in that information are adopted and passed on, and therefore entities change. And we end up with a great variety of the wonders that we have that are the living things on this planet. And with the world, it's often said that, our Earth is on this perfect axis, and we have the right amount of water, and we have the right amount of qualities in the air for our kind of life. And yeah, it is, but it's because we've adapted to that. It's the other way around. It's sort of like a puddle saying to itself, and this comes from Douglas Adams. He says, imagine a puddle waking up one morning and thinking, this is an interesting world I find myself in, an interesting hole I find myself in. It fits me rather neatly, doesn't it? In fact, it fits me staggeringly well. It must have been made just to have me in it. And it's sort of an arrogant argument that the world was created so that we could exist that way. And just as things go in life, more likely you adapt to the world that is presented to you. And evolution is about us adapting to become what we are, not the world adapting to us.
Yeah. I think another example I heard, I got somebody's email quote or something like that, I think, is your nose was so perfectly designed to hold a pair of glasses. So
you laugh now, but that was one of the old creationist arguments.
Wow.
What about those, for those
I
who
mean
have
old as in like back in Darwin's time, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Why this is important for people, I mean, I'm really interested in studying evolution, and there's people who study this, but why is this important to people in general? And the reason is because this is science. And science, like morals, pretty much have the same purpose for us. They are there to help us get along with each other on this earth. We have our moral systems, and we act morally with each other so that we can get along and do the best for all of each other. And likewise, science, we learn about our world so that we can make our world a better place and adapt better to it and be healthier in it. So if we stop teaching evolution in schools, you are knocking out the building block to biology, modern biology, and therefore modern medicine. And you are preventing us from helping each other. And it's really, to not teach evolution is an act of immorality. That's the way I see it. If you are being immoral if you don't teach evolution, because someone who's learning evolution is going to be able to learn proper biology and learn proper medicine and create the cures that are eventually going to save our future children and extend the lives of our grandparents. And that's important because we really enjoy being on this earth. Even those who believe in an afterlife enjoy this earth quite much, and the longer we can stay on it and be peaceful with one another, the better. And good science and the best knowledge we can have of evolution to promote science is going to be the key to all that happening. Okay. And that's what I've got to say today.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, just a quick note, we are live today. It's April 17th, so if you got any questions or comments on that or anything for us in general, phone number will be up on your screen momentarily. One question I did have is, we know about the intelligent designers and what they're trying to do, but what response would you have to their saying of just teach the controversy?
Well, we don't teach the controversy all the time. I mean, we don't teach the controversy in geometry, or we don't teach controversial math. We don't have time to teach the controversy. We have problems in this country with educational funding. We rank 49th in the world in literacy education. We don't have the time to teach things that we know don't work as well.
Okay.
We've got to go with the best available option, and that best available option in biology is evolution. That's where we have facts right now. There might be, if they produce facts that show that there is this intelligent design, then by all means present them, and if they come out, let's adapt to that. But as it is, there's nothing knocking down the evolution tree right now. It's very strong, and the only reason we don't teach controversy in areas where it doesn't involve religion. And we don't need to. Our school dollars are precious, and we need to go with what works and what's going to be best for the future and what's going to be most useful for our students.
Okay. So the controversy, I assume, amongst actual scientists is on small details of evolution.
Yes.
But there are no grand problems that are going to knock the entire thing down. So by teaching the controversy, you're teaching nitpicky little points that don't matter so much when you're at low levels like high school.
Yeah, it's sort of like nitpicking about directions on how to get from South Austin to North Austin. The two locations are the same. You might take an alternate route depending on traffic, but it's there's nothing major going on there.
Okay. All right.
I'm not sure I totally agree with everything you said as far as teaching the controversy goes, because I think part of the problem with education right now is teaching too much in the way of specific facts without giving a general framework about how to think about stuff. I think that's a really important aspect of education, but as far as science goes, I think there are really 2 points to science education. One is that we should be teaching kids how to think like a scientist. In other words, how to sort of think outside the box, come up with hypotheses that maybe haven't been thought of before, and learn how to explore their crazy ideas, basically. But the other thing that needs to be taught is science as we know it now.
Okay.
And what creationists are after is not teaching that there is a controversy because it will help you think better about how to think like a scientist. They want it taught as if it were part of real science. And they want to do that by basically bypassing real science, going over the heads of real scientists who universally say that intelligent design is bunk. And saying, all right, the scientists won't take us seriously, so let's just feed it straight into the heads of the kids' brains, as if this were part of standard science, and convince them that that's what it is. I mean, I would actually support having teaching about intelligent design other than something other than a science class, like a philosophy of science class, if we were to get that advanced in secondary and high schools.
But as it presents itself to the situation now, adding the intelligent design thing is just going to be doubling more facts that kids are not going to remember.
Right,
Yeah.
and they're wrong facts.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go on to a couple callers now, since we've got some lined up. Let's talk to first, Steve, you there?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Hi.
What you got for us?
Well, I was listening in, and the little discussion you had about the second law of thermodynamics for evolution.
Okay.
And I thought it was just a little bit weak. The first thing with that is that there's many different ways to describe the second law of thermodynamics. It's not just the flow of heat from hotter to colder. There's different variations of it.
Okay.
And I think for this argument, a better one would be using the idea of the entropy of the universe. And the total entropy or randomness is increasing over time. And that's,
Yes.
as you said, for the entire system.
Okay.
And evolutionist will, or the creationist will use the idea that, well, if the randomness is increasing, that the evolution violates that. Well, the way around it that they're not seeing is that just because we're getting more order in some minor spot, is it doesn't mean that we're getting more order throughout the entire universe. Is we can have little pockets of more organization without violating the second law. It's just like we can take a deck of cards and we can throw them up into the air and they spread out everywhere, and that follows the second law of thermodynamics, more randomness. Yet if I take them and then stack them all together, I've created more order, so I've violated the second law? No. Is I still stay in keeping with the second law, because there's other things that end up keeping the balance, because I've used up heat, energy, and random molecular motion from that in me using energy to restack the deck.
Right.
And so,
What I like to say a lot of the time is that every time you get up in the morning and breathe in air and put food in your body, and that enables you to continue walking around and doing stuff, according to creationists, you're violating the second law of thermodynamics.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole heat sink, and it has to happen that way, but that doesn't mean that we can't have organized information, organized patterns, and that's what life does.
Okay, so temporary pockets of organization.
Yeah.
So, and you label it minor. I don't know if I'd call it minor, to us at least.
Well,
But to the universe in general, I understand your point. All right, did you have anything else for us?
No, that's it.
Okay, thanks all for calling.
You bet.
Thanks. I have another Steve.
Okay, yes we do. Let's go on to, again, Steve, you there?
Yeah,
Okay,
the idea of extinction of species.
all right.
That's something that I think we've actually seen happen, and
Okay.
we know has happened. And it's probably, there's evidence in the fossil record that it's happened many, many times. It seems like it's very easy to explain extinction of species with the evolutionary theory. I guess if you're going to try and explain it with the intelligent design theory, it's whoops, bad design.
Well,
So I know that's kind of a...
I'll put on my creationist hat and tell you
Okay.
what they'll say. Fall of man, we brought sin into the world, and that brought death, and it's our fault.
Well, that's fine, but...
So you think you're killing-
creationism, we're talking the intelligent design workaround.
Yeah, well,
and
they
according
can't
to
talk
that,
directly
you
to
have to
that.
have a faulty intelligent designer.
Yeah.
I think that's very easy to understand. It's a dumb kind of thing to say, but it's at the same level of a lot of their argument. I think it might make a good counter-argument, even though it's pretty vacuous, really. But
Yeah.
that's
All
my
right.
little 2 cents worth.
Okay. Anything else?
Thanks.
Okay,
That's
thanks
it.
for calling. All right. One thing I would want to ask that kind of sparked an interesting question to both of you. We do see extinction and species that are disappearing. We don't see quite as many species being created. And also, how does that relate to evolutionary time spans in terms of they have the idea, I think Dawkins promoted it, of speciation, or I'm missing the terminology, but basically species
Punctuated equilibrium?
Exactly.
That's Gould.
Okay, sorry. But basically species be coming up relatively quickly. I guess, do you have some details on that?
Punctuated equilibrium. Actually, do you want to go first? It's your topic.
Yeah, with this, it's the evolution isn't a perfectly even flow. You have things like I guess it was the Cambrian explosion, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That caused...
Which has a misleading name because rather than taking seconds, it took a few million years, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
But you have, in a relatively short time, cosmologically, like on the Earth, you have a huge extinction, and then in other periods you have greater speciation because you have the filling of the niches throughout the that are left behind by other species, and also our identification of species is sort of limited. We are very knowledgeable in regards to the larger species, but there's still thousands and millions of species that we haven't identified yet that are all bacteria and insects and plants that we know nothing about and we don't even have really a good estimate on because it's impossible to identify them all. So where we focus on the larger species because they're most easily to grasp and we have them in zoos and we're most familiar with that, we're sort of ignoring the fact that plants and insects and these smaller things are coming up just as quickly. We may have knocked out
more quickly, actually.
Like human beings have knocked out hundreds of existing large species, especially as they've come through to Madagascar and Australia, where formerly they were very isolated areas. But urbanization has caused great speciation within bacteria and viruses.
Sounds like a fair trade to me.
Evolution doesn't care how big the species is, or how small it is, or how smart or dumb it is. They're only concerned with successful reproduction, and species don't care about what it's going to turn into in the future. They're cared, like we all are, about how can I live today? How can I myself reproduce and be a successful life form at this moment? And adapting for oneself and living and surging forward, viruses and bacteria, as you can go to any hospital and see, or any school classroom and see the diseases that they carry around on their snot-nosed hands. You'll see great variation. So the bacteria are changing much faster than we are knocking out the condor and the spotted owl.
Okay.
Right. I mean, you just have to realize that AIDS did not exist at all 100 years ago to realize that germs evolve.
Yeah. And I think you had said with punctuated equilibrium, well, you talked about the Cambrian explosion being a couple million years. Punctuated equilibrium, about how long?
Well, I mean,
theorize.
Punctuated equilibrium is the difference between saying things evolve over billions of years and saying, well, this set of evolution might have just taken 10 million.
Okay. So the idea that we haven't seen any new species or new kinds come around in our recorded history of, to be generous, 500 years.
Our recorded history is approximately 10,000 years, I think.
Well, I would think
and it's very sketchy for the first 9,800 of them.
Yeah, I think for something to be able to tell what kind of animals they had, probably 500 years is even being generous.
Yeah.
But even, let's even go with it, 10,000 years. We're talking 10,000 years. We haven't seen any new species of elk come around, any new, brand new forms of life that we've never seen before come around in 10,000 years. But even with the high-speed evolution of punctuated equilibrium, we're still talking potentially millions.
Yeah, it's common for creationists to misinterpret to misinterpret what punctuated means
Yeah.
because they say, well, that just means that it happens so fast that evolution, within 10 years, that evolutionists use it to explain the huge gaps in the fossil record.
Okay.
Richard Dawkins, whose book you have there, criticized Stephen Jay Gould for not doing a very good job of presenting this so-called controversy of punctuated equilibrium.
It's in here.
It is?
Yeah, he has about 3 articles on Gould.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of professional combatants against each other. And I recall a particular thing he wrote in the main book. What is it? Blind Watchmaker?
Yeah.
Where he said it's sort of like in the Bible, the Israelites moved a certain amount of, they wandered in the desert for 40 years, and in that time they moved like 200 kilometers or whatever. and so Gould is like a Bible scholar coming along and saying, no, you people have had it all wrong all this time. They moved, in fits and starts. Unlike the, gradualists who believed that every morning they would pack up their tents and move a couple of inches.
Move it 30 feet and then set up new territory.
And then set up the tents again. He said nobody was ever really a gradualist by Gould's definition.
All right. Okay, let's go into a couple more callers. We have got, let me see. Ty, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what you got for us?
Russell had said he'd like to see a framework of how evolution works and not just spilling out the facts. I'm sorry I haven't logged on to talkorigins.com, or I haven't seen your list of recommended readings.
It's actually .org, but talkorigins.org. But
if it's not on there, I'd like to mention a book that could explain things to most people with any question about evolution. It's called Blueprints. Maybe you've heard of it. Blueprints,
No.
Solving the Mystery of Evolution. It's by Madeline Eady and Donald Johansson. So maybe that should be on the list of recommended readings.
And what does it actually go into specifically? Do you know?
Well,
I assume you know.
it actually spells out evolution in the process of building a bicycle, like a bicycle factory, piecing it all together. So, just give it a read. Blueprints is the name of it.
Okay.
Have you all read Concester's Tale? The Ancestor's Tale? Dawkins just came out with it a couple months ago.
I haven't read that one.
I just recommend him because he's such a readable writer. A lot of science guys aren't the most fluid, and the Concester's Tale is sort of done in the format of the. I'm sorry, I keep on saying the term Concestor. It's the Ancestor's Tale. He coined the term Concestor in it, but it's done in the format of the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer, and he goes through various different species on the steps of the way to explain evolution as well. So that's a good. I've gotten about 400 pages through it, and it's absolutely enthralling.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, give Blueprints a try.
Excellent,
Okay.
definitely
All
will.
right, look
All
up.
right, thanks.
Thanks for calling. Okay. Sorry, phone troubles. All right, let's go on to, let's see. Matthew, you there?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what you got for us?
Yeah, you guys were talking about how humans can change evolution with viruses and stuff.
Okay.
The CDC just sent out live flu virus to almost 5,000 labs across the country to do
Yeah,
Yeah.
fun stuff.
and it's a rare strain that no one has immunity to,
Yeah.
and it killed like 4 million people a long time ago, like back in the 50s or something.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, was it from China, correct? Was it from China originally?
From where?
Was the original source where it infected people in China?
No, I think this is stuff they had in a lab. They were sending it out to so people could identify it.
Oh, I know that, but was it
The original
the original strain that killed 4 million people? Was that in China? I'm trying to get my bearings on
I'm
this.
not sure. There's been like a couple of different stories going around about the flu,
Okay.
and I'm not sure which ones cross
Okay.
over. But I was going to say that I'm not a creationist, but I'm spiritual. And I think that the universe created itself, and that if you wanted to define God, that would be that universe in and of itself.
Okay, but you don't have intelligence or magic powers in your
No,
definition.
it's not like it's based on science. It's all my beliefs are based on like science pretty much, and
Okay.
I kind of take what I need from different religions,
Okay.
mainly like Eastern stuff, and
and some like Rosicrucian stuff and stuff like that.
I know some of the Eastern, there are some nuggets of truth in it in terms of the benefits of certain practices, but it's easy to cross over the line into other forms of what I would classify as wackiness. For instance, meditation. There are benefits to forms of meditation, but saying that you're going to attain a higher level of consciousness and oneness with the spirit realm and stuff, that's going a little bit far. It's good for relaxation, not good for getting in touch with your ancestors.
I'm kind of a casual fan of Taoism, personally.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a Taoist, but it sounds cool.
It's got some nifty things. So.
Yeah, I really think that we had a conversation a few weeks ago about how the spiritual energy is, I don't know how much you guys know about anatomy and physiology, but there is energy that runs through the body, and I do believe that that is the spirit, and that if you look at science from a certain perspective, some aspects of spirituality come through it.
Okay.
If you look, but it's hard for you guys to look at it that perspective because you're coming at it from more of a scientific perspective.
Yeah. Well, it's just looking at things. Chinese meridians, for instance, used in acupuncture and that type of thing. I haven't seen any form of evidence out there showing that these meridians actually exist, but some of the benefits, or, well, I wouldn't say benefits, but I was into martial arts for years and years and years and years. And some of those meridians and that type of philosophy or medicine or whatever you want to call it comes into that as saying, if you hit these 2 points in the right way, then you can cause unconsciousness and whatever. While that's sometimes true, I don't know about the reasoning for it. As in saying, you're stopping the energy that flows around the body or something like that. Not necessarily. You've actually got a bundle of nerves there, and if you hit it the right way, then it's going to mess them things up temporarily.
So that's the link between the spiritual and what we think is the physical. There's like a division there where, you guys try to use science to say that those things don't exist, but I know from my own experiences and what I've researched that there is energy that runs through the body, and it is totally dimensionally, I think it almost exists on a higher plane. It's kind of like a form of energy. It's like people they didn't believe in electricity a long time ago. It was just lightning in the sky, and they thought that was the wrath of God or whatever. But we figured out what it was. But I think it goes even beyond.
But we wound up explaining electricity in terms of actual physical processes.
Yeah, but when you're sitting in a room right now, are you aware of every scientific principle that's being displayed in front of you right now, including the functions of your own body, the lights,
No.
Yeah.
what made the banner behind you?
Yeah, we admit that science doesn't explain everything these days.
I admit that I don't know even everything that science knows.
Yeah.
I mean, that scientists in general know, and I admit that everything that they know does not encompass everything there is to know.
You sound like Donald Rumsfeld. Did you ever?
Do I sound like Donald
He says
Rumsfeld?
almost
I don't
the same
think so.
thing.
Does my mind sounding like Donald Rumsfeld? I
Talking
don't know.
about
Sit that
intelligence.
into it. Oh, there it goes. I'm sure you could do a funny skit.
But what was that, I'm sorry?
It's just, I just look at things from a different perspective than you guys, I think. That's pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's, I used to be an atheist. For a while I was agnostic, and then I've just, my life experience, and I know that's hard for you guys to
Yeah,
accept.
but are you saying that your changing from an atheist into something else proves that you were wrong before?
No, I just think I'm maybe a little wiser now, because I can separate. I can sit there and watch you guys and agree with you guys on a lot of different points. There is a lot of really wacky stuff that people do in the name of religion and with religion and how they manipulate people's minds with it and stuff. So I can totally relate to you guys on that level. But I've just gained my own perspective on why we're here and who we are. And I don't know everything yet, but I think I'm closer than I was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think going back to, again, like Eastern medicine, for instance, the big problem that I have with some of that is it has been tested time and time and time again and shown that it doesn't have any benefit over just random chance. Acupuncture and stuff like that,
It could be psychosomatic. It could be
Possibly, yeah.
people. It could be like a placebo effect.
Yeah.
Right.
And that just right there proves the power of the mind. Your mind, your spiritual mind, has the power to make yourself sick.
Yeah,
or
and
to
the
make
benefit,
yourself well.
and the benefit of science, what I'm saying is, if science can more thoroughly understand that type of thing, then we can work on that and using that power that we know exists. And I hesitate to call it power, but using that to actually advance medicine, rather than supporting things which we know don't by themselves do anything.
Quackery.
What is that?
Quackery.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, people putting forth medicines which are spiritual in nature, I mean, like, what was that thing that Jeff talked about a long time ago? St. John's wort,
Yes.
which was promoted as this big cure-all, and then it turned out it was actually killing people. So, I mean, there are disadvantages to just taking things based on feelings when you have no way of verifying that they actually work.
I got one question for you, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
Do any of you know who Wilhelm Reich is, or are familiar with his work at all? And
I see someone in the audience does, but we don't.
Yeah, the name sounds vaguely familiar, but
Well,
not sure.
he pretty much did research on some of the stuff I'm talking about in terms of like there being some sort of bioforce or energy or something like that. And he tried to actually quantify it and measure it scientifically. But I basically think that what he discovered scientifically was what the Chinese call qi.
Okay. All right.
That it all intertwines. The whole world is pretty much linked up. But I'll see you guys later, man. Thanks.
All right,
Okay, thanks for calling.
The audience reaction is not favorable to this guy, whatever he did.
If I find this guy on the James Randi site, I know we're in trouble.
Okay.
We'll see. Also, a quick reminder to any atheist-friendly people who are watching, we are going to be going to Chili's after the show, some of us. So if you have interested in coming down and meet some of the cast and crew and family and friends, like I said, we'll be down there around about 6:40, 6:45. They're about southeast corner of I-35 and 183. Again, atheist-friendly people only, please. All right, let's go on to a couple other callers. We have got Jim. You there?
Hey.
Hey, what you got for us?
Okay, so the first thing I want to ask is, what are your beliefs and the what are your beliefs involving the Pope?
He's dead.
He was the leader of the Catholic Church. In terms of what, I didn't study his life all that much. He was one of the less inflammatory characters out there. He wasn't exactly a Jerry Falwell, for instance.
The odds are excellent that the next guy will be worse.
So, he was okay in that respect. He still had beliefs and led a church, which I think is fundamentally wrong in terms of its beliefs on how the universe works, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think I have stronger opinions than most on the Pope. I was really disappointed that there's nothing critical came out in the press about him the existence of a Pope is a very controversial thing. I mean, this is the most powerful person on the planet, pretty much. Next to as far as leading the most people, I think, in a military sense, he's not powerful. They did not go to Iraq because he protested. But, we have a continent of Africa which is being wiped out by AIDS. And, this Pope has the power to do things to, promote not more than just abstinence, actual technology that will help people not pass diseases to each other. And
so, are you saying you're a hippie?
I think it might be time to put your finger on the button.
But
Sorry, didn't get to swear on the
I
air.
will continue to say what I feel about the Pope is that the best Pope is still sucking. It's still a bad thing. And the way the Catholic Church looks at it, they have so much power. You go there. Friends of ours recently were telling us about what it was like to go to the Vatican and see what they have there, and they just have the greatest concentration of wealth. And they're not doing what they can with it. They say that their mission is to help people, but that's not it. Some of the papal beatifications, one was for a woman who was beat horribly and eventually beaten to death by her husband. And she was made a saint and beatified by the Pope because she held her family together and didn't leave her husband. That's a horrible message to women. I cannot support any organization that thinks that women are second-class citizens the way that the Roman Catholic Church does. Also, they go out to all these poor countries, and they could immediately give them clean water and shelter and help them to develop an economy where they're doing these missions. But they convert them first. They don't give them any help until after the conversion happens, because no one's interested in changing their ideas about how the world works when they have food and shelter. When you don't have food and shelter, you'll try anything, and you'll try Catholicism. So I really...
I believe there was something during the tsunami that really drove the point home. A group of missionaries wanted to go out there and give food and water, but when they were told that they couldn't go out there and give food and water and preach, they decided not to do the food and water part.
Wow.
They decided to pull out of the operation entirely.
They show their true colors. The color of the Roman Catholic Church is red, and that's for the blood of millions of people who die as a result of their practices and policies.
Right.
Yeah, if they really wanted to help, as much as they might not like the idea of birth control, for instance, it is something that definitely helps the population. So helping people with that knowledge and understanding and benefits.
On the other hand, you got to say this for the Pope. He apologized to Galileo, and he said maybe evolution is not so bad from a Catholic perspective. So, you can at least say that he brought the church up to the point where it's only a couple of 100 years out of step with the rest of the world.
All right. Again, we're talking about evolution today, but any kind of questions you may have for us are more than welcome. We're live today. It's April 17th. Phone number is on your screen, so if you've got any questions or comments, go ahead and use it. Let's go on to Michael. You there?
Yeah. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey. All right. What you got for us?
Well, I was as I was explaining to your call screener, I was asking whether or not you guys were actually just kind of a religion or religious organization in your own right, and the fact that you guys express a specific view on theology, whether or not it's no God or God, you guys are still an organization that expresses that point of view.
Okay.
And I was wondering, what the purpose of that is.
Yeah, I wouldn't call atheism or this show or the ACA or anything like that a religion, mostly because all the definitions that actually mean anything to do with religion usually involves worshiping of some higher power, some god or something like that. Now, there are sub-definitions. If you go down to definition 2 and 3 in the dictionary.
Satanism would be considered self-worship.
What is that?
I said, well, like Satanism would be considered self-worship.
Isn't it worship of Satan?
Yeah.
No, it's not worship of Satan.
There's different kinds of Satanists out there. You have to decide.
But they consider themselves, my point is, they consider themselves a religious organization.
Okay.
When they're not actually worshiping a higher power. And my point is, you guys expressing a specific viewpoint on religion, whether positive or negative in anybody's mind, is still considered a religious organization. So you guys
it really just depends on which definition you want to go with. Yeah. If religion, as I think most of us think, is basically involves the organized worship of something, then we're not a religion. But if religion is a bunch of guys getting together and talking about stuff, then sure, we're a religion.
Right.
And so are baseball teams.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a ridiculous comparison. But
no, it's not.
Yeah,
because most of the definitions, again, people will rely on something of it's people who get together and strongly agree on a certain point. Well, Buffy fan clubs do that. Political parties do that. If you want to, loosen the term religion so much, then fine.
The shared perspective of your organization is about religion and about a deity, whether or not it exists or not. And that's my point. It's not about a fanatical, baseball fan or a fanatical Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. Yeah. It's about a specific viewpoint on a higher being.
Yeah,
but
it's,
That,
other people don't have to believe in a God for us to still be atheists. We'd be atheists regardless if anyone else had these thoughts about spirituality. We might not get together and talk about it on TV, but our talking about these things isn't, our being atheist isn't dependent on other people having a religion. We would just all be people who didn't believe in super higher powers.
Yeah.
good point. And my other question is, do you guys ever think that you may be perpetrating or furthering the quote unquote culture war in America by just kind of adding fuel to that fire? In the shaky political climate we're in right now, I don't think having an organization to promote atheism or whatever is actually kind of doing a disservice, and that you're giving your Bill O'Reillys or your John Hannity's fuel to scare the middle America into going more along with their political ideology.
Okay, I'll be quick with this because I think you're chomping at the bit too.
We all are.
I think because of the current political climate that we're in, because it's so religiously based, that now is the perfect time for something like this to try and show people and tell them that, look, this is not a Christian nation. You should not be making political decisions based on what God told you to do and those type of things. Relying on God and religion to run your life is a really dangerous thing, and it can do some very, very scary things. And so we need to have it. We need to have other opinions out there to say, look, there are better things to base your life on than simply the whims of yourself, in which you're going to call messages from God.
I feel that the objective of someone like a Bill O'Reilly is to get people who disagree with him to shut up. I mean, I've heard him say that once or twice.
Well,
and I believe that
Bill O'Reilly's or any pontificator's specific purpose is to completely take people's minds off of fiscal policy and any other type of foreign policy in an effort to get them worried about things like religion and corruption of children, which, I'm sorry, I hate to bring it up, but O'Reilly breaches a...
What would you rather hear about, us or Michael Jackson? That's what's going to happen in the show. But if we were to make it on the show, we would take out time for Michael Jackson.
You've got to agree, basically, you've got to agree, basically, that there's an agenda that involves more than just social and than just economic changes. I mean, there are very active groups out there who want to affect the lives of a lot of people using religious bludgeons, like like nobody can get an abortion, gays should be less than full citizens. None of which are specifically atheist issues, but
I understand what you're saying, and I completely agree with your point there. But my point is that with any organization of this manner, or hell, they're calling the ACLU a terrorist group right now.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, you can't just throw people into the fire. You can't just be a full-on if somebody's watching this show and you're just shooting down their religion, which isn't hard to do, over and over again, then I think that you're actually just going to make them more venomous and more ravenous and more determined to...
Perhaps, but if they're at the point where they're calling ACLU a terrorist organization, we've already got problems. The fact is that they have already declared that there is a culture war. It's not our fault because we didn't want to declare war.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's the organization's fault, but specifically, I think it is your fault.
Oh, wow.
You specifically.
Wow. I wish we had that much control being on Austin Access.
But if everyone who incites Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity, those fact seekers, if everyone who incites them is quiet, then they'll just get to say whatever they want unchallenged. I
Exactly.
think that's a horrible thing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, don't you think that a bunch of people getting together to make an organized effort to basically shut the other side up and push their views, telling you that all atheists are evil people who want to destroy morality in the country and make a hedonistic culture?
Job of it, and I think that the fact of the matter is,
yes, but the way that they characterize
atheist, your religion is bunk. Here's why.
Right.
I think that's does more damage.
But the way that they characterize atheism is wrong. Can we agree on that?
I absolutely agree on that. I agree with your perspective on it. I just feel that the idea of organizing your stance on religion to a point to where they can use you guys as fuel for this fire.
But we do more than just tell people that the religion is bunk. We were trying to educate people on fallacies of evolution today and discuss something that's in the classroom that they should be concerned about, the education of their children. There's more involved than just that. We do more than just say this against whoever calls in about Christianity. People have a topic every week, and most of the time it's not specifically a religious topic. It's sometimes something that atheists care about, and such as science, things in sciences, and there's more that we do than just try to incite Bill O'Reilly. And I say that he's inciting us. I say it's his fault. He's putting the fire to the culture war. The more he talks, that's just the more that we're going to come out. And,
that's true.
Turn it the other way around.
How come people don't ever go to crazy people like Bill O'Reilly and say, hey, don't you think that you're inciting the other guys and you should just be quiet?
Well, we can't get through their call screeners.
Yeah.
So
we're wrong because our call screeners aren't as good as theirs. As you got through.
Pretty much, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not saying you guys are wrong. This is the point. I don't think that you guys are wrong. I don't think your stance is wrong. I think that the way you're going about it is wrong. And I think that just throwing it in people's faces
and also
you have to be very political and very.
People can change the channel.
You're walking on eggshells with this subject.
Yeah, but I think
you can destroy a lot of people's existence.
But like I said, we're doing a lot more on this show.
Dollars in religion.
Yeah, but we're doing more on this show than simply saying you're wrong and you're stupid for believing what you believe. We're also trying to get forward our ideas to a certain extent and say there are other ways of looking at the world which make what we think is more sense. And so here's a better way of looking at the world than the one you currently have.
No, I can't. I really can't see you being able to say that to anybody. I don't think anybody has the right to tell anybody that their view of the world is more valid.
No, you're wrong.
Then you're wrong.
Hold on.
Wrong.
Everybody has the right to tell anybody whatever they want. Other people have the right not to agree.
Exactly.
That's the way freedom of speech and freedom of ideas works. Everybody has the right to contradict somebody.
Right. I'm saying, okay, you're absolutely right. You can contradict somebody, but you can't sit there and tell somebody the way you look at it is wrong. Here's my way; it's better. I think that's ridiculous to tell that to somebody.
we rarely say that.
But for the purpose of your cause, for the purpose of your organization, I don't think that that's a good way to go about it by any stretch.
How would you go about it?
And you're just going to incite.
So what would be your
action.
suggestion then?
My suggestion?
I mean, I'm assuming you're advocating that we should get ideas out there into the forum and present them. You don't agree with our method of doing it. I'm assuming you're not just saying that we should just shut up.
Right. Well, what I think you guys should do is flash it up, maybe wrestle a little bit, have like a band come in, like some girls in bikinis dancing around.
Yeah, that's not going to get the idea
That's
across.
the other ACA. That's the Austin Cheerleading Association. We're not
There you
them.
go. There you go. We're going to go on and take some other callers, though, but thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Douche.
So, yeah, I don't think that's the best way of getting our ideas across. Maybe it is.
If
Hooters
we
does a good
wanted
job.
if we wanted our show to appeal to stupid people, well,
Exactly.
actually, I think we're already doing a good job. Based on that last guy.
Good old intelligence and facts just don't get anywhere, do they?
All right, we've got about 15 minutes left, and again, we're live today. If you got any questions or comments, phone number will be up on your screen momentarily. Let's go ahead and talk to Larry. You there?
Hey, I'm here. How's it going?
All right.
What you got for us?
Oh, I was just This is kind of odd. Let me get my sound right here.
Just turn off your TV or something.
Yeah. I first want to say I just love your show. It's very good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And, you know, we were mentioning the Catholic Church earlier, and I was born into a Catholic family.
Okay.
And was basically drove, you know, Catholicism was just, you know, steeped in our entire family in my life. And as I grew into a teenager, I left from that and started getting, you know, studying Eastern religions, et cetera, and I've come to the point where I'm pretty much an atheist now.
Okay.
And, you know, just, you know...
Come to Chili's.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing after another. The more you learn, the more you don't know, basically.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say was that it's interesting is that the power, you know, this isn't an example of the power of not just the Catholic Church, but any deep religion, is that even now that I'm pretty much an atheist, I'm, you know, maybe a little agnostic, but the thing is that even though I can reason that there's no scientific proof, no God and whatnot, in my daily life, you know, I will continue to do things. Like, say, my car is screwed up, and I get into my car, and just unconsciously or subconsciously, I go, oh, God, please let my car, you know, get me to work.
But I would call that habit more than religion.
Yeah, that's a reflex. I mean, we all hope. I mean,
you know, in different situations during the day, and it's kind of like a split personality thing almost.
Yeah.
And that there's still part of me that's been ingrained since childhood that reaches out, you know, to some stronger being to help me get through whatever it is, when I know on a logical level that that's just kind of silly.
Yeah. Is that causing any harm?
Oh, I don't know. I think that that situation is pretty, you know, it's not my own personal experience. I think millions of people are like that.
Yeah.
And I think it has potential to cause harm.
Well, I think a potential may be there, but I think even that's stretching it. You know basically where you stand and what you believe and don't believe. I mean, I do the same thing, and certain expressions I have are, you know, based on religion in some way or another. That's just reflective of the culture that we're in and how you were brought up.
Meaningless cliches, we say them all the time.
Exactly.
God damn this.
And you know, unlike Christians, atheists do not believe in thought crimes.
Exactly.
I mean, you know,
exactly.
the Bible says that if you've lusted after a woman in your heart, then
it's
as God is committing adultery, so you might as well pluck out your eye, or else you won't go to heaven.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't care. It's your actions that...
If only the woman you lusted for felt the same way.
What? She would pluck out your eye?
It's impossible.
No,
It's impossible for me to totally extract religion from my life, simply because, you know, from, you know, a little child, you know, it was taught to me. And so, you know, a lot of my thought process and a lot of my actions are based on religion, and in my opinion, religion is bullshit.
And
And so, you know,
I think the important
it is
thing,
kind of a quandary.
Yeah, and I think kind of the important point that I would stress is that since this is something that's relatively new, then you need to spend the time thinking about where your ideas actually stand, where your beliefs actually are, and, you know, think through issues like abortion, for instance. Catholics obviously say no, cannot happen under pretty much any circumstances. Think through on your position, where do you think on certain things like that? Now, as far as keeping some of the, I don't want to call it baggage, but some of the old beliefs or ideas or traditions, assuming you know where it comes from and where it stops, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, I still celebrate Christmas to a certain extent. Doesn't mean I believe that the Savior of mankind was born on that day and that's what I'm celebrating.
Right.
I'm celebrating getting together with family, having some time off of work, things like that. And so I don't see a problem with that. One of the co-hosts on this TV show, Karen Glasser, she still is Jewish. That doesn't mean that she believes in God and that God did all these things that are related in the Bible, but there's still a cultural thing there which is important to her. And so, assuming that she knows where those beliefs start and stop and where her ideas come from, I don't see a problem with that either. So,
Right.
And
so
if I can get all Eastern religion Zen mystic on you, try by not trying. Do or not do. There is only try. No, wait, that was Yoda.
Right. I'm not suffering some kind of crisis because of this or anything like that. I just thought it was an interesting observation that religion, once introduced to your life, and which it is, to a great extent across the world, it's not easy to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's neither here nor there. I have one more question.
Okay.
Why do you go to Chili's? That place is horrible.
Lack of
We've had discussion about that.
decision-making.
We've had discussion about that, and that's part of it. Just trying to get together to agree on somewhere
Everybody
else.
hates, somebody hates any place we try.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
Pretty much anywhere that we pick is
Chili's
going to have
is really
some.
mediocre.
We need an
So,
equally well located place
Exactly.
that will be able to hold, 12 to 14 people on a Sunday. If
Yeah.
you have any suggestions,
Plus
let
we
us
need-
know,
Yeah.
please.
We need
'cause
to attract people
I
with
hate
all
it more than
different
anyone
income
there.
levels.
Yeah, go someplace like the Texas Chili Parlor or something Austin.
True, Austin base would be kind of nice. So, all right. Well, we're
Thank
taking
you.
into consideration, so maybe in a
Okay,
couple
guys.
weeks. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Larry.
Texas chili.
Was it Tex Chili or Texas?
Tex chili. We lost it. Oh, well.
All right. Anyway, we're going to take a couple more calls before the show is over. Let's go on to Derryn. You there?
Yes, hi.
Hey.
I just wanted to say that I'm a really big fan of your show.
Thank you.
And then I wanted to actually, I sympathize with that last caller, not this last one, but the one before him that was saying this isn't
We're
really
doing
good.
it
You're
wrong.
fueling the fire. I sympathize with where he's coming from, but I don't really agree with him. I mean, like you're always saying, Ashley, about like when people like Jerry Falwell and like all the other like dominions you guys were talking about last week.
Yeah.
When they have so much power, this is like more. This is really the time for this.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to give kudos to Tim for talking about the Pope and the Catholic Church and telling the truth about them. And it's not really about it's not really about helping people.
Yeah, a little more hard-lined.
Yeah. You really don't hear that like very much. Yeah, I haven't heard that at all actually.
I ventured a little more hard line from the typical stance of the show, and that comes a lot from having been raised in the Catholic Church. I had this horrible experience. I knew when I was very young that I was an atheist, and my mother died when I was very young, but her dying wish was that I would be raised an atheist.
Or Catholic.
If only that was the situation. Her wish was that I would be raised as a Catholic, and I had to go through all this catechism and knowing that I was an atheist, and that the day it was over, I would no longer have anything to do with it. And I went through that whole experience very critically, and so I have a different experience than most.
You must have a barrel of laughs at catechism school.
Actually, when I was 8, when I was 8 years old, from my Holy Communion during rehearsal, I did something to the holy water that surely can't.
Let's just leave it at that. We'll say you threw an Alka-Seltzer in there.
I know, I'm pretty sure neither the host nor any of the co-hosts are lapsed Catholics. So you're unique here.
Actually, I was a Catholic. I was raised Catholic.
But not like a serious Catholic.
Well, my dad was very serious. He brought me to church every week and everything in that. But my mom was very much more of a deist. And so they both evened each other out. And so I wasn't in this home where I felt like it was constantly upon me and being rammed down my throat or anything like that.
No, for me, my grandmother had a special suitcase that was set aside. She had
We'll lock you in it.
that the church was going to call her when the second coming was, and she had a special plane ticket that whenever that happened, she would grab that thing and go straight to the airport and gather with all the other people with the ticket. And she went to church every single day, and she had relics and amazing stuff. We could have had a.
So I guess
on the show.
you can't take it with you wouldn't be a real big expression in your house.
Okay, do you have anything else for us?
Actually, I just wanted to say that you guys are great, and I hope you keep doing what you're doing.
Okay,
Thank you,
Derryn.
Thank you. Also, going back to what one of the previous callers was talking about, having bits of the religion still kind of stuck with you even after you're not religious anymore. Going back to my mom, who is somewhat religious in a quasi kind of way, but she is not full-fledged Catholic or Christian even or anything like that. But she does collect some of the artifacts in terms of she loves old Bibles and crosses and statues and stained glass and basically the art of the church. So she loves all that. She has some Bibles like from 1700s. So I mean, it's really interesting to have this stuff and to see it, but she takes it as the artwork. And so if you don't know any better, you walk into, their house, it's like a shrine. They got these huge crosses and, big wooden crosses taller than I am, stained glass windows, stuff like that. I mean, it's more than a church. But she doesn't have the opinion that this is glorifying God or anything like that. It's simply, this is neat artwork that she likes. So,
Right.
So hey, again, no problem with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right, and
Enjoy
she's my
classes.
mother, so there's nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
All right, let's go on to one or two more callers. We have got Sam. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what you got for us?
Oh, just like your show, it's great.
Thank you.
It's a bit enlightening to those who have not been enlightened, I guess.
We try.
Whatever that means. Anyway, it was just kind of weird because I was raised Christian and I really didn't have a conflict with it until I started taking some astronomy classes and realized how much Christianity and religion sort of stinted the growth of our knowledge base, such as what happened to Galileo.
Yeah.
How evolution has totally been shot down by the Christian religion mainly. I don't think any other religions has shot it down.
Well, Islams aren't real big on it.
Yeah, they are, right? But so what's going on is I don't know. I've kind of even had, it was like I went to this Christian school, and it was really, really funny because I remember my teacher saying at one point about the dinosaur bones, saying, I think Satan put them there that way Jesus wouldn't be, that way we wouldn't believe in Jesus, and that way, And
it's surprising how many people have that idea. I know my girlfriend's aunt, I believe it is very religious, and said that for the longest time, that dinosaur bones were put there by the devil to trick us.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
I mean, but it's also retarded in a very backwards way, because, I mean, if you think about it, I can speak for Christianity because I was raised Christian.
Yeah.
And I can say that it is a very fear-based religion and greed-based religion because of the fact that, well, if you're not a goody two-shoes, if you don't, follow the word of the Bible, which what I think is just bad poetry to sum it all up. Anyway, if you don't do all this and this and that and this and not sin,
then you're going to hell.
I know that you're going to hell. But it's all a greed-based thing, because if you didn't have the opportunity to go to heaven and not go to hell and not be a sinner and go to heaven, then you wouldn't be trying to live a straight and narrow path and go to heaven.
I'm going to do this not because it's a good thing to do or the right thing to do, because it's going to get me into heaven.
Right.
And with that, unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go. We've only got a couple seconds left, but thanks a lot for calling in.
Certainly. Y'all have a nice evening.
You too. Talking about astronomy, though, really quick, I remember that one of my ideas with that is if this world and universe was designed just so we could be here, that's a horribly inefficient use of space. It's absolutely atrocious. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks Tim for coming on. Excellent. Thank you Russell for helping out again.
Thanks.
Everyone, again, atheist friendly people, Chili's in about 40 minutes, southeast corner of I-35 and 183. I will see everybody next week.